Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to yet another exciting halal food podcast. Today we have one of the known faces in the halal sector, halal industry globally. He has been in the halal sector for a long time, and he is a pioneer in halal certification. So today we want to really learn as much as we can from him. So we will be talking about his organization, how the organization came about, and also halal standardization. So we will talk about the likes of the World Halal Food Council and World Halal Council. For those of you who are interested in understanding how these organizations were formed, this is the place to be. So our brother Haj Habib Ghanim Sr in the US will take us through that. But before I proceed, I cannot introduce him. He can introduce himself properly for us. So I'll invite Brother Habib in to introduce himself, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Dr. Awal. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. First and foremost, I want to thank Allah for everything that He has given me, good health and the possibility and the opportunity to work in halal. My name is Habib Ghanim. I'm from Africa, but of Lebanese origin. I came to the United States in 1973 May. And the reason why I see your question, what got me motivated to go into halal? As a student, I was trying to get to eat some meat, and I insisted on finding out about halal. So I used to go to a British company called Accreditation Fish and Chips. So I got tired of fish and chips. So I tried to go to the meat part. Yeah. So I went to McDonald's and I was asking for meat. The guy said, "You want hamburger?" I said, "No, I don't want hamburger. Yeah. Ham is pork, Yeah. And there were people behind me in the line that started using a word that I cannot repeat. So eventually he told me something that I learned that I didn't know, that it is beef, but the concept started from Hamburg in Germany. Okay. So that's why they call it hamburger. So that was my first lesson in Halal 101. So then in school, I gathered a few students and friends of mine from Africa, including Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and Senegal. So I came up with the idea of we buy our own, slaughter it, and freeze them in a freezer, Yeah. And then we'll go as need. So normally we start with a cow. And then if it lasts 1 month, sometimes it's 7 of us, sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 4, we split it. So that's how I really got interested. And as I was going, I learned a lot about other things, the ingredients that go into, even if the meat is halal, for example, I found out that in those days, now they don't have it, that they used to do the French fries with lard. So even though potatoes are halal, but if you fry it, if you use lard, it makes it haram, whether it's fish or potato. So this is, in a nutshell, how I started, a young student from Africa trying to eat properly and follow the guidelines that Allah has given us to eat halal. Yeah. So I can go a little bit deeper, but I just want to give you the beginning.
Absolutely. Now, you've mentioned something which has brought a new question or another question to me. You say you used to slaughter. You used to buy your animal, slaughter it, and then keep it in a freezer.
Yes. Yeah.
Is it still allowed in the US for Muslims or non-Muslims to buy their own animals and slaughter the animal? Because I know in some countries it's not allowed, but what I want to know is, what is the situation in the US?
It is, God bless America, it is allowed. Even every year, even though I have my own well, I'm retired now, but I still have the certification. A group of management, properly trained managers are running it, but I'll get into that later. We are allowed to do it. That's why when people talk about stunning and non-stun and mechanical, and we don't have that major problem in US because we are allowed to do it. The only thing is, if you want to do it, you cannot sell it interstate. It's for personal consumption. And you have to have the place where you're doing it has to be inspected by a local inspector, whether it's county. And if you want to sell legally, you have to go to a federal USDA. So there's the county, there's the state, and there's local. So that's where the difference lies. But we are allowed to do it. I actually used to do it because I have my land, my house is about 7 acres. So I used to do it in my own house even.
All right. That is interesting, Brother Habib. In the UK too, it is allowed. We've got something called the home slaughter regulation, and we also farmers are also allowed to slaughter on farm. If the animal is theirs, obviously, but they cannot in the UK. You can neither sell it nor distribute it to anybody. If you slaughter it, it must be consumed by the household. You cannot distribute it to even friends who are not within the household.
Basically, that is true even here. And if I tell you there is a law in the books in the USDA Department of Agriculture where Jewish mothers can slaughter in their apartments even a chicken, not something big, and do the kosher slaughter in their own household.
Wow.
It comes back to the same thing that they cannot sell, but it's for their personal consumption.
Yeah. So now, looking at the US, Brother Habib, what is the situation of halal certification in the US? Do you have enough halal certifiers to be able to cater for the demands? Because the US is a large country. Do you have enough halal certifiers to cater for the population? And also, once you answer that, I want you to give me a brief history on certification in the US. How did it start?
Okay, well, one of the first question is we have about 5 or 8 major, no, I wouldn't say qualified or accredited bodies. And then you have a lot of fly-by-night organizations that are one-man thing. But those, again, they do what we started our conversation with. They will go to a farm, slaughter, and then they start with the Kurbani thing. It happens mainly around Ramadan.
Okay.
So to come back to your question about do we have enough? Yeah, I think we are fortunate in the US in that we have been blessed by the USDA and the kosher regulations, which kind of support us, in many ways, I don't want to get into kosher versus halal, but they help us get recognition because we use the laws that apply to them. Like I told you about the Jewish women that can do it in their house, so we can do it.
Yeah.
So yes, we have, and then this is where it will come to what I told you earlier on.
Yeah.
Actually, the World Halal Council was started, World Halal Food Council, started in 1999. But for me, I started before then because a delegation from Malaysia came from Jakim.
Okay.
And they went to the USDA, and I was working with the Arab Chamber at the time, certification department, not for meat, but for documentation.
Yeah.
So they came to our office. We had one of them, Ustaz Fahim. Those were the days of the former deputy prime minister, who had the scandal. They were all here. So anyhow, that was when Jakim made a law that we can use mechanical slaughter. So when people talk about mechanical slaughter of poultry, we were doing it non-stun and by hand. I mean, the general public.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
Jakim came up with this fatwa allowing it. So the USDA took advantage and got all the certification, the organizations to adopt it. And it became something allowed in the USDA books. But they said if it is done, a certificate has to be issued by a recognized body.
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
the word recognized body doesn't mean Jimmy Cliff or John Doe. It means an Islamic body that is non-profit.
yeah.
That non-profit is very important, and they have an office. They have qualified and trained people to do the slaughter. At that time, we only were looking into the slaughter. There was nobody except for one. I think Dr. Chaudhry from Ifanka that was dealing with further process. I mean, with other items, ingredients, with Master Husseini and Dr. Ahmed Sakar and others, in Chicago.
Yeah.
So there was some shipments going to the Gulf, and I was in charge of the documentation. So I would refer people to them.
Yeah.
Then it got to a stage where I went beyond the just educating people about halal.
Yeah.
Companies started asking me to get involved. That is when I approached Islamic Society of Washington and others, including ISNA, to give me endorsement. So obviously the closest one to me was Islamic Society of Washington, and we got it in 87, so I started doing it informally for only poultry. I started only with poultry.
Okay.
So generally speaking, it was mainly for export, to get to your question. But what the companies would do, the poultry companies, there were 7 main ones, and we dealt with 4 of them. I had 4 accounts.
Yeah.
They would, after we do it, then many people locally wanted to buy. The halal stores started popping up slowly. Yeah. They would buy the leftover from what it was shipped overseas. Mm-hmm. In those days, we don't do halal all the time in a plant. We do it only when they get orders. Okay. So that is the problem is when you want to have some slaughtermen assigned, it was difficult. And eventually I came up with the idea of, instead of having to wait for orders to come, I told the big companies, the Tysons and the Pilgrims, and that you have to dedicate 1 or 2 plants that will be doing halal all the time. So we don't have to run around and bring slaughtermen every time.
Yeah.
And of course that was mechanical, but they did allow us, if we want to do hand slaughter, that means they will require more people, and the certification body, have to pay for it. They would not pay for the extra bodies.
Okay. Yeah. So you also mentioned mechanical slaughter being introduced by the Malaysian standards.
Yes.
When was it? Is it something that happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
No, in the late 80s. It's not something new. They brought it to the US, unfortunately. Even though it was not allowed in Malaysia, but for imports, it was allowed.
All right. That's interesting. And since the 80s, and people are still debating about it today. So
actually, there was no debate in those days. It was fully acceptable, to be honest with you, because when it was demonstrated, with all due respect to Jakim, I went to all their trainings there at the time, and on the plants, the first thing they will tell you is that when they're using stunning, for example, it has to be very, very light voltage and amps. Okay. So we'll take the chicken off, put them on the ground, and they will start running again. They're still alive. Now, what was not allowed is high voltage that will stun to kill. Yeah. And one thing they made very clear at that time is that there must be a Muslim that starts the machine, that says the tasmiyah, and the backups killers have to be in case the machine misses any. I'll reverse a little bit. In the US, all the birds have the same date of birth and when they slaughter them. So when they are 1 day old, they feed them and they keep moving them every 30 days. So when they bring chickens for slaughter, they all have the same body size, the body weight, and all.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, they're either 30 days or 40 days. So if it is big birds, we use a quarter to measure the depth of the cut on the one single rotary blade.
Yeah.
If it is a medium-sized bird, we will use a nickel, and the small bird, the chicken, we use a dime. So I don't know what you call it in UK, whether it's pennies or whatever.
Yeah.
But the quarter is much bigger. The nickel is midway and the dime is very small. So that's how we used to measure it, so that there will be no mistake. If you mix the birds with one blade and they are different sizes, there's chances that it will cut off. So that's one of the job that the halal slaughtermen, usually we have 4 or 5 of them in the plant. And unlike others, we do not use a tape recorder. They have to be in, and they have to be practicing Muslims, of course. What I mean practicing, I don't have to go into details. They are not alcoholic or whatever, So that I can go into a little bit more details, but also we did manual slaughter was done, and because the price was higher, we pay average of $200 a day to $250 to the Muslim slaughtermen, and they are responsible for all their things. But now we are forced to have insurance. My staff is doing all of that. I'm retired again, like I said. They are doing it according to the new guidelines of the GSO and GSC, and they have been there. They've seen our operation. We have, how do you call it? We have about 7 different approvals, a scope of accreditation, perishable animal products. We have shelf life, we have transportation, chemical, and other materials and further processed items. So it's a lot. We started only with slaughter, and we moved actually now to even cosmetics.
Wow. So thank you very much, Brother Habib. So now you also made, you've clarified the situation with how you started, and also with mechanical slaughter. Now I want us to move to how Halal Council and Halal Food Council came into being. And once you explain that, I want you to also go to try and explain to people whether these organizations are accreditation bodies, are they certification bodies, or are they just clubs, a group of certifiers getting together?
Well, when we started, the hope was to get us to have one standard. The whole thing was we wanted to have one standard to help. So we wrote the guidelines. I don't want to go into the details, but it touched everything from aquatic to the slaughter supervisor, the method of slaughter. We talked about sunning and the process of slaughtering and packaging and labeling and storage. We talk about how to do other things like what you put the ingredients in, things like hot dogs and other items, even medication, the gel versus the veggie cap, This was done we started in 1999. Believe it or not, it never became approved until 2007. We had few meetings in Kuala Lumpur, Indonesia, and in South Africa in 2007. That was when the bylaws and the standards were adopted. It's basically what we did. We had people from the 4 main schools of thought, and we took the common denominator that met all the requirements. So there will be no ifs and buts. If you want to go above, say, the Shafi or the Hanbali, you can do that. But the common denominator was what the World Halal Council, World Halal Food Council did. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever you want, there was a split. We had the former presidents of the World Halal Council, where one of them was Indonesia, the lady sister Aisha Girindra, may her soul rest in peace. We have Ali Shok of Australia. We have Dr. Sadiq of Ifanka with Munir Chaudhry. We had another Dr. Nazaret Hussein from LP POM and Hakim Luhman, and then Najar, from South Africa. So there was a variety of countries, but we were about 57 of, let's say around 60 of well-known halal certifiers in those countries.
Yeah.
So every country had like 2 or 3, only 1 or 2 countries had one. So we had a very good mixture. So it was like the United Nations of halal. But then after 5 years, we had a meeting, and then Indonesia wanted us to use only their standards. And there was a dispute in Istanbul, and we made Indonesia the head of World Halal Council, but they still wanted only Indonesian standards to be approved, and ours included everybody.
Yeah.
So there was sort of a split, and then they had a meeting in Jakarta saying that they will not recognize anybody who does not follow only Indonesia. So that's where the split began. It was very sad and political.
Yeah.
So, but there's a little bit more than that, but on the surface, that's what it is.
Yeah. So in terms of World Halal Food Council and World Halal Council, which one came first? Was it the Food Council that came first before the council?
The Food Council.
Oh, okay.
I was an original member in 1999, November.
Yeah.
Although we met prior to that informally, but officially when it was formed and registered, it was in Jakarta in 1999, November at the Hilton Hotel. Now it's called Badabadur. I don't know. I forgot the name of the hotel.
Okay. Yeah. So in terms of those organizations, are they actually accreditation bodies, or are they just a group of certification bodies?
Okay. Let me just tell you something.
Yeah.
That would simplify it. When you apply, how you become a member, you first go through we ask them for documentation, who the officers are and who the slaughtermen are, something basically like what an accreditation body does.
Yeah.
But we were not giving them certificates of accreditation, being accredited. We just tell them we recognize them as a member, and to be a member, we have to stand for unity, and the most important thing, which we are suffering today, is having mutual recognition among members. So what happened is when the World Halal Food Council split from the World Halal Council, they started not recognizing each other, even though they're in the same town.
Yeah.
So it was very sad, in my opinion. And I'm still hoping that we will get together. I've tried every year. By the way, I'm the vice president of the World Halal Council. Since I'm one of the founding members, people like Munir Chaudhry and this Mohammed Moli and all the others that I told you in Australia and South Africa, we started small, about 9, and then it went to about 60.
Wow.
And I told you I started because of meat and poultry only. I was not doing anything else. Yeah. But then we wrote the standards. It took about 7 years. And we finally, it's a very well written document. And I tell you, I wish we would all follow it.
Yeah.
And if people wanted to do like the stunning part and the non-stun, that can be, all of that has to be cleared in the labeling, if you label. So basically, I have some more. So basically, the background is that we wanted, besides meat, we wanted to establish and develop halal procedures that we all have similarities.
Yeah.
So we would recognize each other,
Yeah.
So, and then we started making sure that people have the knowledge about halal and the hygiene, and having veterinary scientists among them and working to educate the plants. One thing that we will never accept in the World Health Council is gas stunning, no matter what, for animals, big, small. If you use gas stunning, you're
out.
Out. You will not even recognize it.
Okay. Yeah, so that brings us to another question on standardization, Brother Habib. So with the differences that you've just highlighted, the challenges that you had, do you think the halal industry, the global halal industry, is any closer to coming out with a standard that will be adopted by all schools of laws and all halal certifiers around the world? Do you think one day we will realize that? And if yes or no?
Actually, Allah gave us that answer in 2007. We have the World Halal Council standards. It's there. It's there. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. But some people are becoming more particular about certain things. You have some young people who go to South Africa for about 6 months and they come with a big beard and suddenly they are muftis. They say, this is haram, and this is haram, that machine is haram and stuff, without knowing the facts. And one of them was challenged by our head of the Sharia, Imam Muhammad. And I'm telling you this story because it's good for the younger people.
Yeah, absolutely.
He said that everything is haram unless he makes it halal. So Imam asked him, what's the evidence? Where do you have it? He said there is a hadith that was mentioned, and Imam said, okay, show me the hadith. Tell me the hadith. It's been over 3-4 years now. He cannot produce that hadith because it doesn't exist. So they make these things up to scare people, and they do certain things. They go to the stores, and the store owners have to pay like £100 a month to them, and they put stickers, and they're not even in the plant. They don't own the plants, but they just go once or twice to see the place. In my opinion, I know this as a fact. It's happening. And they're doing a good job, but the thing is they scare people and they extort money from the shop owners. And the shop owners take advantage by charging Muslims a lot more than they should. If I tell you that almost, I don't know about Europe, but here, the average price certification bodies charge is 2 or 3 cents a pound. Even if it is 3 cents, it's a lot. So if the regular meat versus the halal meat should not be more than 3 cents more, maximum 5, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, that is interesting and very fascinating. So in terms of mutual recognition of certifiers, do you think some of these problems, if we understood some of if we understood the scriptures properly, there wouldn't be those problems that we're facing now? So certifier A in the UK wouldn't recognize certifier B, and the same is in the well, I'm assuming the same is in the US as well. Or do you all recognize certificates from yourselves?
No, there are some that we don't. Like I told you, if anybody is doing gas, we will not even touch you.
Yeah.
No matter how long your beard is, if you do gas tunning, we will not. So, World Halal Council standards kind of encompassed everything. But Indonesia had their own standard, which is based on their school of thought. So what we were trying to do is to get people to claim what they're using. Like, for example, our people do both. Depending on the customers. If the customers want, we have plants that do only hand slaughter. We have that do some mechanical, but definitely no gas tunning is basically water bad. But for the export, no matter what people tell you, they try to tell you what you want to hear. It's almost 99% water bath and stun and mechanical for poultry.
Wow. Even to countries like Saudi Arabia.
Oh, yes.
All
I
right.
can assure you that.
Okay. 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 Okay.
And they allowed it before, by the way. They allowed it. Even IAC, they allowed it, But now there is some new uh, organizations that are pushing them to refuse mechanical or
Okay.
stun for the smaller ones.
Yeah.
And then we do not encourage electrical stunning. We
Okay.
rather have,
All right.
yes, we don't. We prefer the non-penetrating one if for big animals.
Well, big animals like cattle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other thing is, in Europe, we've had instances where, or situations where there were fraudulent activities in the halal industry. Have you encountered that in the US?
Not as much as Europe. In fact, I say why I say God bless America. There are laws that you cannot mix species. If you do it, you go to jail. And if you say something is halal,
Yeah.
for example, and you did not have a USDA inspector to sign off on it and show the Islamic organization that did it, you cannot just put a halal sticker. Although there are some generic halal labeling laws that are becoming a problem now, but if they catch you saying that this is halal and it's not, you could go to jail or get a fine. And I know a couple of people that have been through that in Texas and Virginia down the street here. I don't need
Okay.
to go to names, but it
Yeah.
happened. And because the judge asked me, I kind of testified the
Yeah.
differences. I was very impartial. I just gave him the basics and they made the decision.
Yeah. The last question I've got for you, Brother Habib, is one-man certification ban. So those with a bicycle and a paper and a printer on their backs printing certificates. Have you encountered them, and how do you think the industry can get rid of them?
We don't have many of that. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
Most of the people that do that are people that want to sell the meat and then they do it on their own. They buy from the bigger place. But in Southeast Asia, I know some people, well, I shouldn't say I know, but I've heard of some people.
Yeah.
And Mufti Khan can correct me if I'm wrong, where they they just issue certificates, and they are alone. And then the worst part of it, for example, when they use bones to make bone meal or to make gelatin,
Yeah.
they will go around in bicycles or carts and collect bones from everywhere, and we don't know the origin of the bone. At least here we know. I just want to, when talking about this, I heard somebody mention about certifying the food of the feed, animal feed.
Okay. Yeah.
USDA has not approved anybody because it's impossible.
All right.
It is impossible because anybody who tells you that they have, unless it's a small place, because they take all the bones, make bone meal, and they mix it with the corn. They feed, they add it as a to the corn, as the corn meal. So because of that, and then when they heat it, when the bone is treated, it's difficult to know whether it's pig bone, dog, or donkey, or whatever.
Thank you very much, Brother Habib. Do you just want to take a few minutes to tell industry how to contact you if they want certificate, the process of contacting your organization, maybe your
That
website?
one, like I told you that I'm sort of retired, but I have a team of well-trained for almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And by the way, we are accredited by JAC and IAC, and we've been doing work even for the Southeast Asian. We used to be under JACIM until this split happened.
Yeah.
And Indonesia, so it became difficult. But somehow the people tend to get their products through. But we just follow our guidelines. What I would advise everybody is to try and end their animosity, and their greed,
Yeah.
and try to recognize each other mutually. If there's the number one thing is that I wouldn't, we are not allowed to accept now any certificate if you are not accredited. But the cost of accreditation is so high, not many, there are not many.
Yeah.
So we're limited to who we accept, only accredited bodies. We are accredited. We went through the training of our auditors. We have committees, we have Sharia committees, we've got decision committees, we have a whole process. Even if you make an application, the way they ask for documentation and all, before we even accept to go, it's not about the money. It's about the facility or the product meeting the required standard. So, and in all these years, I I gained the name Halal King, in fact, all my emails. So even it became stuck in the whole world. Even the accreditors, they know me as the Halal King,
Mashallah.
although only Allah is the king, but it's because of my experience. I have trained and helped so many people indirectly and directly. I am not only looking for myself. Like I said, I'm retired now, they're running the thing, but I participate when they need my decision. But they are fully qualified. They have certificates from for example, Dubai University, University of Halal in UAE, and they have trainings, ISO and GSO trainings. I can tell you the list: 20, 25, 20. All of that.
Yeah, this is very refreshing to hear that halal auditors, halal technical people are getting trained to industry standards. So alhamdulillah, that's very, very good to
not only trained, they must have a piece of paper. With a qualified teacher.
Alhamdulillah.
To issue those certificates. And by the way, the good thing is about this accreditation, but they do check and they test you. So you cannot just show them a piece of paper and get away with it.
They will trace it.
Yeah, and they do some actual random sampling, and they come and do on-site. Except recently with COVID, on-site has not been, but they do a very good job with remote auditing now,
Mashallah.
And they have the system. I don't want to go. They have some glasses where you can see what's going on live, with the video.
Yeah. Brother Habib, thank you very much for your valuable time. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm hoping people will learn from what you said. And maybe
let's unite. Let us unite. Let us forget our pride. Let us accept the World Halal Council standard.
Alhamdulillah.
And if you want to go beyond, you can put that. If you want to do only hand slaughter, you put that. But don't say that everything is haram unless you do it, that is lying on the Prophet and lying on the Sunnah and our Islam. Islam doesn't say that.
Inshallah.
Islam says everything is halal except you forbid it. So thank you very much. And my name is Halal King. I like it. Thank you. Assalam.
In the future, I'll be back again. I'll speak to some of the younger ones in your organization so that at least they can also let us know.
They are running it. They are so smart. They are more with the technological part. I tell you, you wouldn't believe how competent they are technologically, and why accreditation made us go from this level to that level. Now we can proudly say if any certificate is issued, you can be assured that it is in compliance, and there's documentation to prove everything.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank you very much, and give my best regards to also one of the pioneers in England, Brother Kawaja and all of them,
Mr. Masood Kawaja, inshallah. Okay.
Yeah, he was one of our people that helped with the standards, when we were doing it.
Nice.
Thank you very much. May Allah reward you for what you are doing.
Inshallah.
I have read your book too. You're doing a good job.
Alhamdulillah.
And again, there is nothing that is 100% halal or not. There's always a gray area. That's what I tell people.
Okay.
I use my example when I was eating French fries from McDonald's. Potatoes is halal, but they're fried in lard, so technically it wasn't. I can give more examples, but I just want to say assalamu alaikum. And anything I said
Yeah.
is from my experience. I'm not blaming anybody. I learned a lot. It started as a hobby, and it kind of fell on my lap from the first Gulf War to the second one.
Yeah.
And now, getting past the 70-year range, I'm just relaxing now. Watching young people like you take over.
Yeah, inshallah. One day we'll get to your age too. So, but we'll try and contribute as much as we can.
I'm always here to help. I always give advice.
Inshallah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.